because you always use that active and defenders.
I think it's like
People, Deluded, I'm back again. I had him a year ago. It's almost a year to the day. It's only right with it being the end of the season. I got Mr. Adrian Clarke on. How you doing, my friend? Are you all good and safe?
I'm all right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, nice to be back. Nice little intro there. I like it. Like your backdrop as well.
Appreciate that. I'm in the best place I could be, man. It's a
the
shame
new
it's a
changing rooms looking smooth, mate. Yeah, all good.
Oh man, so yeah, as I kind of said before I got you on here, you know, with it being the end of the season, it was only right, you know, for me to pick your brains on how the season went, the highs, the lows, and just everything Arsenal, really. So let's get into it. I want to start off. What's your thoughts on the season now that you've had time to digest everything? You know, it feels like August against Brentford was last week, really, and we've been through a lot of good and bad highs and lows, mate.
Yeah, exactly that, really. I think we've ended up in the position that I thought we'd end up in. I think that fifth was about par for the team, considering where we come from. We had some really disappointing seasons, and it was a rebuild. We had a lot of new players, and I thought, do you know what? I thought that it would be Manchester United that maybe pipped us to fourth rather than Tottenham. I thought we might finish ahead of them this season, so that's a disappointment,
Very
clearly, for everyone of a Gooner persuasion. But in general, I think, despite the tail off towards the end, fifth is about where I expected the team to be. We grew, no doubt about that. We did improve in lots and lots of areas. The young players came on a bundle. I thought the new signings from last summer were by and large very good. And the team are playing better, more exciting football, creating more chances. So there's lots to be positive about. But look, when you're in the position needing one win from the last, two of the last three games to get Champions League and you don't get it, it hurts, doesn't it? So yeah, I'm as disappointed as everybody else, and you know, I feel flat about it. But the bigger picture is that we improved, and that's a step, right?
I mean, you've touched on the right areas that I'm going to pick apart even more. You mentioned positives. What specific positives have you seen? Because you kind of mentioned it. You know, an obvious one has been the young players. You know, Saka and Smith Rowe have, you know, for the large part of the season, somewhat carried the team. Ramsdale is not much older than them. It's been a breath of fresh air. The atmosphere, I feel, in and around the club has been amazing. So what positives are there for those who may not know what you're referring to?
Good shouts. Yeah, I was starting with the atmosphere inside the ground. I mean, you'll have felt it yourself. I know that we're all back in the grounds this season. We'd had a while away for obvious reasons, but I just think the atmosphere was the best it's been for many years.
Yeah,
absolutely no poison inside the ground. It was everyone was behind the team. Then the connection between the players and the fans has been the best, I think, since I've started to come back and work at Arsenal, which is a long time now, you know, well over a decade. So yeah, the atmosphere has been great, but the reason behind that is I think that the young players are popular with the supporters. They can identify with them. They're young, hungry, exciting. They're improving. I mean, the stats bear out the fact that we're better going forward. I think in terms of open play chances created, it's like it's around 100 extra chances that we've created. Wow. It's a lot. We're having a lot more shots in general than we did previously, where we laboured.
Didn't do that simply. Yeah.
We laboured during the lockdown pandemic. We didn't score anywhere enough goals. We didn't create enough chances. To be honest, I still think that we need to create more. We need to score more goals.
Amen.
But the actual creativity was much better. And I think Ødegaard made a big difference there. Settled in fantastically, improved from his loan spell. Hand on heart, this time last year, I was on the fence in terms of whether we should pursue Martin Ødegaard. We were linked with a lot of other names as well. He hadn't grabbed games by the scruff of the neck and dominated in the way that I wanted him to. But this season, he did it. And look, I think we had Ødegaard and Saka inside the top 5 for chances created in the Premier League this
between
season.
each other.
Exactly. So we had 2 guys in the top 5 of the whole Premier League for chance creation, which I think, you know, speaks volumes. So that's a big positive. I mean, there are lots, but there are also areas that obviously we need to improve. I think most of the positives are around Saka, Ødegaard, Smith Rowe, etc. And I do think actually as well that Mikel Arteta, even though he didn't have the perfect season, what managers do, and I think he's made mistakes along the way, but I think that he improved as well a little bit. It wasn't perfect, but I think that his style of football came through a little bit better, and I think we played faster, more fluid football. There's scope for better, we know that, but I think that he made a step forward too.
What would you say his football, obviously comparing it from when he first walked into now, what would you say his, because you kind of alluded to it, like, what is his style? I think I can kind of guess it's attacking football, hungry football and things like that, but what would you say it is?
I think the quality of the pass and move football improved, definitely. I think we played slowly, pretty patterns. We weren't incisive. We didn't have that penetration. We didn't have the penetration before. And that's what we've got this season. Now, part of that is down to the pace and the excellence of players like Saka, Martinelli, and the vision of Ødegaard to play those passes in behind. So a lot of the credit goes to the players, but I think the quality of the football, obviously his coaching has rubbed off on the players, and everyone's just a little bit more comfortable, a bit more natural in the way that they play on the ball.
I agree.
We're good on the counter. I think we've known that for a long time. We've scored some really good goals, I think, on transitions and moves that started with Ramsdale. But we need more of the ball. We need more of the ball. We need to pin teams in and for sustained.
How would we do that?
Well, I want us to have a bit more confidence on the ball. I think that at the moment we're at our best when the other team have it, and then when we steal it off them, and that's fine, and that's kind of on trend. A lot of teams do that. But I want us to be as dangerous when we have the ball. And I think that we're getting there. But that is a big area where we can improve. I want us to have 55, 60% of possession. Because if we've got the ball, then other teams can't hurt us. And I want us to control our own sort of destiny a bit more. Now, I don't want 60% possession just for the sake of it. I want us to, when we've got that possession, to really go at teams and pin them in for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and just bombard them with chances and like and Liverpool do, like City do, like the very best teams do. I feel that we don't do that well enough, and I think that we're getting a squad together now where we can control games and do that. But it's a work in progress. I think we can all see that.
With what you just said, would you pull it down to experience? Because as I don't like to keep like waffling about the youth and being young and things like that, because I think you're old enough to watch one game and realize some similar themes that you're doing. There's been times where we've kind of taken the lead, the sun's shining, the fans are making noise, we're playing well, and it's almost like, I don't want to quite say complacency or that we assume the job's done, but it's almost like we're still in first and second gear. And you eloquently put it earlier with teams like Liverpool and City, they smell blood and going for the kill and literally don't give you a chance. So what would you put that down to? Is that down to youth? Is it down to natural youthful naivety, or just because we kind of haven't been in that territory yet, so we don't kind of understand to be killers?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of all of those things. This is a new team, isn't it? That's learning about what works for them. Because most of this group weren't here 3 years ago, so they've been learning together under the coach, and they're working out what the best style of football is. And I think it helps as well with the central midfield. I think that was obviously an issue at times this season. I thought that Partey and Xhaka were really good for a spell, weren't they? Excellent.
Yeah, you're right.
But then, of course, Partey got injured, and I think that was a bit of an issue. So I think if you've got 2 guys in there or 3 guys in there that are really able to control matches, that helps. And the passing from back to front as well, it will get better. I'm sure it was okay last season, but I think it will get better. And it's having that platform as well. Obviously, with Alexander Lacazette, he was up and down with his form, didn't score enough goals. Then we had Eddie Nketiah come in, who offered something different, bit of pace in behind, could hold it as well. But he's a work in progress. He's someone that can shine at Premier League level, but is he top end? He's not Harry Kane. He's not Cristiano Ronaldo. He's not, a lot of these guys that are proven. So I think having a real frontline quality striker will certainly help us establish our position inside the opposition half, where we can really play off them and whatnot moving forward. So, yeah, it's it will come. I'm sure of it. But I do honestly, I really feel, especially against the better teams, we have to assert ourselves for longer spells and not absorb as much pressure, because you're asking for a little bit of trouble, aren't you? If you're having to spend a lot of the time without the ball.
Like you said, you're pardon me, sorry. You're inviting a lot of pressure if you haven't got the ball. You mentioned it kind of with midfield. Do you feel we kind of need to bring in new midfielders? Because as you kind of said, as much as I love Thomas Partey, take nothing away from it. We've kind of seen the themes in that. He had a good season. He kind of got injured. I've got a lot of appreciation for Xhaka. I feel he's, it's a very delicate situation, but I feel him and the fans have kind of made peace. Yeah. I feel he had a decent season, but it's kind of what you see is what you get. He's a good player. He's not exactly that sort of level. And as you know better than me, whether you're going to be on the front foot, whether you've got physically imposing players, you kind of need to do a bit more in midfield. And that's one thing I feel our pivot, I don't really know what it is, sort of thing. So do you think it's more of a coaching thing, or do you think it's personnel, or is it a bit of the two?
I think it's personnel. We need more players.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, that much is obvious. We stretched ourselves way too thin in January, and it cost us when injuries hurt. The club gambled on getting through to the top four with a small group, and we almost did it, but we didn't make it. And I think that we saw for a period, didn't we, with Partey at the base, and then we had Xhaka and Ødegaard sort of to the left and the right of him as more box-to-box guys. I think that is what Mikel Arteta wants. I think that's the shape that he plans to use moving forwards. Now, Partey, I think, will stay in that position. Ødegaard will stay in that position to the right. It's the Granit Xhaka role, I think.
Xhaka,
yeah. He was a little bit like a fish out of water there. It didn't suit him. So I think that's why we're in the market for a box-to-box goal-scoring midfielder that can also dig in and defend. It might be the case that Xhaka competes with Thomas Partey for a position moving forward. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I definitely think that is the way we want to go. When Partey got injured, I don't think the manager really wanted to use Granit Xhaka or El Neni solely in that position. We just paired them and used Ødegaard in front, and that's fine. It's a good option. But yeah, moving forward, I think at least one new midfielder has to come in, maybe two this summer to supplement that injury moon.
I kind of want to stay on the topic of midfield, obviously, because you're the man who does the breakdowns. Earlier in this, I wouldn't say so much towards the end of the season, but there was a period where Xhaka, as you kind of alluded to, for me, was playing more like a number 8, kind of flying forward. I think that kind of harmed us at Crystal Palace away. What have you made of him, and what have you made of Ødegaard? Because as you said, I'm sure every Arsenal fan might not have been convinced by him, but I think he's really settled down his roots. I think physically he can impose himself a bit more. He's only got 7 goals in the Prem. I say only because I think he could do a lot more, and I don't think he's quite at the Santi Cazorla stage, but I feel you could run the game for us in that midfield in his own sort of way. So what have you made of them two?
Yeah, which is why I think the 3, having more of a 3 might be the way forward for us, because he can definitely play that deeper Cazorla role. I wouldn't want him on the ball that often around halfway. I want him inside the opposition half. I love the
final third,
the combination that he had with Saka. They had a really good thing going on, where he would obviously drift right, a little bit like Ozil used to, and link up with the right winger, which is Saka. So I think they're dynamite together. I don't want to split
underrated partnership, mate.
Yeah, exactly. It's about partnerships on the pitch, and
Amen.
It's so much about partnerships, which is why the injuries killed us. Because Tierney, for example, had a good partnership with Gabriel on his inside, and whether it's Smith Rowe or Martinelli ahead, and then that gets taken away, and it matters. It really does. So no, Ødegaard's been great. I like his work rate as well. He's
very underrated aspect. Yeah,
covered more distance, I think, than anyone else. He put pressure on opposition defenders. So if we're going to be a pressing team, and I always think we're better when we press, then Ødegaard is often the spark, isn't he? And so I think he's kind of a must pick now. He's established himself along with Saka as players that have to play, really.
Have to start,
yeah. With Xhaka, I think he's had a good season. I think people are starting to appreciate what he brings more. Those forward passes are good. He's an excellent distributor. He really is. My only issue I have 2 issues with Granit Xhaka in terms of, reasons to maybe move away from him moving forward. One is mobility.
Amen.
He doesn't get around the pitch as well as younger, more athletic central midfielders. He's a little bit slow, and the other one is that on occasion he'll switch off. He'll just make it. He can do 9 out of 10 things brilliantly,
Facts.
and he does. But that one thing out of 10 where he switches off, lets his man go, does something daft, costs us goals. So yeah, I think he's still an important member of the team, but of the squad. But yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Every manager loves Granit Xhaka. There's
got to be a reason for that as well. It has to be.
They always pick him. So I don't know what the future holds for him, I honestly. But what I do know is that we need more numbers in there. So we let Guendouzi go. Really, we've let Torreira go. In effect, I think that we need to replace those two with 2 newbies, in my opinion.
What have you made of? Obviously, there hasn't been too many players around, but the guys that have been there, I do think there was occasions where the squad players stepped in. We probably over relied on their purple patches in the feel good factor a bit too much. Almost a forgotten man. What have you made of Lokonga? Because going back to the summer, a lot of people, including myself, are very excited. You know, he could play as an 8, play as a 6. I personally think his future is more aligned to that of Thomas Partey's. He's learning a lot of trades. What have you made of the squad players? And I'd throw Tavares into there as well.
Yeah, I'll start with Lokonga. I think Lokonga has done well. I've been pretty impressed with him, really confident. I think his passing is excellent, especially those longer switches of play. He's got a lot to offer. I think it was the physicality of the Premier League. He just needs to get used to it. I think sometimes he wanted a bit too much time on the ball and defend. You know, opposition midfielders would close him down. I think we saw that at Brighton. In particular, he
had a tough game at Brighton. Yeah,
he really
Brighton
struggled.
Away.
But it was interesting in a way that Mikel lost a little bit of confidence in him by going with El Neni ahead of him. That was a bit of a surprise, but it kind of worked towards the end of the season. You can't say that was the wrong call. It was probably the right one. But yeah, no, Lokonga's in the mix for sure. It just depends. I think, I agree with you. I think he's more of the Partey understudy, in my opinion, someone that will get the ball off the back 4 and spray it around and maybe also drive through, because Partey does that, doesn't he? If gaps open up, if you've got the deep line midfielder that gets it, looks up, often our other 2 midfielders, if we're playing that way, push on higher and wider, and it leaves space.
There's space in behind, there's space everywhere. That's how you pick apart a team in a formation.
Exactly.
And break down low blocks.
I think that Partey was either can drive through those gaps himself or play balls into the centre forward. And I think Lokonga can do the same thing. Tavares, I'm not a fan of him defensively. I think he's got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do defensively. He's very, very raw. Obviously, quick. That's a great asset, but I think there's a lot of work to be done there. Holding came in and did okay, didn't he? By and large, was very good, but then he had a bad game against Son.
Spurs,
I think on reflection, maybe it was a bad idea to put him on the right. There where Son was, maybe we could have had him in the middle of a back 3.
I was thinking the same thing.
Protected him and maybe used Tomiyasu in that sort of right side centre half role against Son. So but look, he's a good lad and great in the dressing room, and an excellent backup centre half. So so he's done all right. And with Eddie Nketiah came in, and he couldn't have done better, really, could he? He proved a lot of people wrong, and be interesting to see what happens in the coming weeks.
What have you made of Tomiyasu and Ramsdale? Because for me, they've been a breath of fresh air. I feel last summer, obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I think it was a good window in that you can't really, if you speak to 10 Arsenal fans, they're all going to say different for their player of the season or their signing of the season. I mean, it's easy to fall in love with Ramsdale from a footballing sense, larger than life character. Tomiyasu, it's just nice to have someone reliable. We haven't had someone like that, in my opinion, since Sagna. So where are you at with them two?
Yeah, big fans. Yeah, Ramsdale, love him. I love his distribution as much as his goalkeeping. I mean, the way that he fizzes the ball into midfielders is great. He tailed off. I think that his form in the first half of the season, he was the best goalie in the Premier League, hands down. He was unbelievable.
Every week he had a great save. Match of the day.
He levelled off, and towards the end, other goalkeepers did overtake him, the likes of Alisson and whatnot. They stood out, didn't they, in the second half of the season? But I think he's a really good keeper. We've got a good one there. Tomiyasu, great. Right back, can play centre half, can play left back. So really, really useful player, good in the air. Yeah, I just want him to be fit. He played less than half the games.
Amen. And
That's
it's
the
almost a
problem.
shock to hear that. We almost don't know what happened with him in the injuries.
Yeah, we had to use Cedric more than we used Tomiyasu. So
Wow.
and so that I think definitely hurt us. And I'm not having to go at Cedric. He's a decent enough player, but he's not as strong
You're
as
not
Tomiyasu
Tomiyasu.
defensively. So I just really, really hope that he can, produce or appear in sort of 30 plus Premier League starts next season. If he does, that makes a real difference to us, no doubt about it.
You mentioned Ramsdale tailed off. What do you put that down to? Because I think it's almost because they're young. He's a 23-year-old keeper, and there's been several players a bit like that. I'd say even Saka's got us. Well, he kind of fell off towards May, where literally the season's done. Take nothing away from Saka, but I think there's a few players. Is it down to obviously a bit like the fans feeling a bit sorry for ourselves because missed opportunities are top four? Is it an experience thing? What would you put it down to, Adrian?
I think, mentally you mature, don't you, as you get older in life, in everything that you do. And I think things can affect you a bit more when you're younger. The fearlessness is a great thing that young players have, and this group have got it. But I think mental fatigue is definitely a thing. And if you're not used to playing 30 odd games in front of huge packed out stadiums, and remember, a lot of these young players emerged in empty stadiums. So
that's a great point, actually.
Kind of
really.
new for them. The mental pressure. And I also think the pressure on young players these days, full stop, because of social media, the spotlight, TV, global audiences, everyone is assessing everything you do.
Micromanaging every facet.
It's mad. And I think being a young player, that's tough to handle. I think it was probably inevitable that a bit of mental fatigue would set in towards the end of the campaign, because there's so much pressure on them, and you can't keep delivering. You can't, unfortunately. When you get to your mid-20s, I think there's an expectation that you can keep delivering, and I think that they did, by and large, an amazing job of maintaining their form.
I can't ask anything more from them. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. So it happens, and also, like, it happened to me. Yeah, even though in a shorter sort of spell when I was in the first team, initially you're just so much adrenaline, you're just so excited to be there, and you're loving it. And then suddenly you might have a setback. You might have one game where you weren't that good, and it's like, can you bounce back from that? And maybe that's what happened with Ramsdale. You made one or two mistakes, and it maybe impacted that unbelievable confidence that he had at the start, and maybe he was second guessing himself a little bit towards the end of the season. But again, that with maturity, he'll improve in that area.
What do you make of Ben White? Because I almost forgot to mention him. He cost 50 million. I feel you can see a bit like Ramsdale. I mean, it's good talent ID because obviously Ramsdale's a good goalie, but you mentioned it specifically playing out from the back. I didn't have him down as one of the best ball playing keepers in the league. Arteta did. Thankfully, we're laughing. What have you made of Ben White? Because I think the jury's still out defensively on him for as good as he is on the ball. But I like his addition and his versatility. And
definitely.
I can kind of see why we bought.
Good player, very good player. I think his passing's good. He's got that ability to play the longer passes down the channels, switches of play. And when he's not there, you notice it. Because think about Liverpool with Van Dijk. I'm not saying he's like Van Dijk. Van Dijk's obviously world class. White isn't yet. But Van Dijk's long range passing gets Liverpool's forward players on the ball earlier with space to run at defenders. Ben White does the same for Arsenal. So I think he's a really important player. What he might face next season is stiff competition with Saliba. We don't know what's going to happen there, but Saliba kind of plays in that position, doesn't he? So fascinating to see who wins that battle. I think White will initially start the season.
Yeah, Saliba should be third choice. In my opinion, that's how I start,
but if there's any dip in form, you've got a real quality young player ready to step in there. So, but that's good. We want that, don't we?
We want competition. Why does everyone?
Yeah, because it drives them on. Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, Smith Rowe, they're pushing each other. We need that sort of competition in other areas of the pitch.
What have you made of Smith Rowe? Because I feel like I've almost forgotten about him in this conversation. I love what he's done. Obviously, I have his kind of tail off of the season because really it's his first real season with any real expectation. I feel he had some injuries. I think, but injuries, loss of form, players playing well, kind of made him become a bit part player. It's difficult to keep your consistency. Would have thought he'd had more assists, but 10 goals, I can't ask anything more from our number 10. It's only up from here, really.
Yeah, he made a big step forward. First half of the season, outstanding. Yeah, he lost his form. He had COVID, didn't he? He didn't maybe recover from that well, and as well as some other players do. I don't know. Stiff competition with, obviously, Ødegaard's kind of made that floating 10 position his own. Which means that he's sort of in competition with Martinelli, and they're two good options, aren't they? And I think it's like horses for courses approach from Arteta. Some games you want someone like Smith Rowe will travel with the ball and sort of be that inverted wide guy.
Like
and
a
then
playmaker.
you've got, and Martinelli, I think, is more of the sort of running behind. When you got up against a team that plays a higher line, you want maybe Martinelli. I also think when you've got a Tini or Tavares flying around the outside, Martinelli can join in as a second centre forward. But so that maybe gives him the edge. But that said, you look at the stats, Smith Rowe's finishing was better than Martinelli's last season, much more clinical. Actually, he was the most clinical player of all Arsenal's forwards in the season just gone.
And they could still improve, which is amazing.
And that is a big issue, by the way. And I think that I talked up the way that we're creating chances. That's heading in absolutely the right direction. But our finishing let us down. I think chance conversion rate was mid-table.
It's not good enough, is it, really?
Well, it was in terms of, you look at the table, we were around the middle, maybe just below middle, whereas Tottenham, who aren't that great a side in my opinion, right at the top there with
quality players at the top.
Yeah, right at the top end of the pitch. So that's why we need two new strikers in the building that are going to be a little bit more lethal than what we've been in the last few years.
You mentioned two strikers. Now, obviously, you kind of alluded to it earlier. Eddie Nketiah's, got an opportunity and kind of made it. He's almost had 2 seasons in one. I think he had one where he's a bit part player, then obviously where he's starting. And games he didn't score, he played quite well. Do you think we go for two strikers now with Eddie Nketiah's emergence and reports that he signs a new deal? Is it feasible for us Arsenal fans to expect Eddie to be there, 2 new forwards, and whatever else we're going to do? Or is it one?
Would be good for Eddie, would it? I mean, I'm a little bit surprised. I'm not saying that we should let Eddie go, but I'm a little bit surprised that the lengths Arsenal are going to keep him at the club, because I would have expected us to bring in 2 strikers, maybe ahead of him in the pecking order. So it's an indication maybe that we might just have one. I don't know. I don't know what the story is going to be. Eddie couldn't have done any better, but I just think that where we are, we could do with. We need more front men. We need more goal scorers. I would absolutely like to see us sign 2.
I'd agree.
One in their early 20s, someone emerging, and one absolute proven player that's sort of coming into their peak years. 24, 25, 26. So that's what I think we need, and I hope we go out and get it. If Eddie does sign and stays and competes with the 2 new signings, they're all sort of level playing field, so to speak. Fair play, but hand on heart, if the names that we're being linked with come, then I would see Eddie below them in the pecking order. So yeah, fascinating. Few weeks and months ahead.
Obviously, you mentioned names. It's only again, names are another thing, as you mentioned in the paper. If there was a name, who would you want to play through the middle?
Yeah, it is hard. I mean, I think if the reports linking us with Gabriel Jesus are correct, absolutely wouldn't be against that. Again, he can play wide as well.
That'd be an amazing option for us, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Do everything.
I think he proved at the end of last season for Manchester City that he's a finisher. I know that his goal output, his numbers aren't fantastic in terms of the stats, but I think he's a good player. I really do. I think he's an excellent player. Great movement, good touch, can hold it.
Presses well.
Yeah, he presses brilliantly. And that's such an important part of what we're about moving forward. So, yeah, he would be great. Who else has been linked? You'll have to chuck some names at me. I mean,
Toro Martinez, Darwin Núñez, Osimhen.
All of those. all of those are very good. I haven't seen all of them that much because I just don't have enough time to watch European football in great detail. But I know Osman's got a good physical presence, and he's excellent goal record. Young player of the year in Serie A. I mean, he would be a coup, wouldn't he? To get, I sense Darwin Núñez is going to chase the riches on offer at other clubs, so we maybe could dismiss him. The Calvert-Lewin is an interesting one, isn't he? Because he didn't have a good season by his standards.
Yeah.
I see a real player in there. I see someone who's big, real threat in the air.
We saw him at the last day of the season. He's got more to his game than many people give him credit for, really.
Yeah, I thought he did okay. I mean, in a shocking Everton team, it's probably, you couldn't expect too much. What he's got real pace, by the way. He's very, very quick, deceptively so. He scores a lot of headers. He holds the ball, links it. He's got good movements. We saw with that assist for the goal that Everton scored in that last day. I think he's a really good player, but it would represent a gamble, wouldn't it? Because he would come to us on the back of a pretty mediocre season, ravaged by injury. So interesting options. I'm sure the club have got plenty of irons in the fire.
He's not a striker, and I don't think we're going to get him. But I mean, we've been linked with transfers. I mean, what would it mean for Gnabry for you to return home, man? What a signing that would be!
I mean, I'm excited by that. When I see the name linked, I think that's perfect as well. I mean, if Arsenal were to sign Gabriel Jesus and Serge Gnabry,
wow.
That would be an absolute game changer. Serge Gnabry can play obviously up front. It's kind of almost where he is now. But again, those two, you could play split strikers, can you? If you had those two,
yeah, even that.
They're very, very exciting. It's maybe asking too much, given that we haven't got Champions League football to get both. But yeah, I always liked him. I thought when he was at Arsenal coming through, he was a real talent. He just got injured at the wrong time. He was out. And when he came back, he was out for ages. Come back and thought things have moved on a bit. He wasn't as sharp. I think his confidence had been affected, and it was obviously a mistake to let him leave in the way that we did. So I'd love to have him back. Yeah.
I mean, moving away from transfers, one thing that I don't like when people, I mean, it's a legitimate question, but I just feel everybody's quick to question Arteta's man management, especially when, Saliba's been on loan. What happened with Aubameyang? What have you made of his man management? Because I feel he's actually shown good man management. There's been times where, quite frankly, Tavares, for example, should have been dropped, and he's played the next week and somewhat repaid the faith, really and truly. So what have you made of Arteta's man management?
It's a good question. I think with the players that he likes and the players that play every week, there's a very good relationship. There's a strong bond between manager and player. And I think that's really, really important.
Facts.
He's ruthless. I mean, we've seen that.
Very.
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad trait, because if you've got to toe the line, I think discipline is important. Yeah. It is really important. You've got to be together. I think there's always room for the odd maverick that you can treat a little bit differently. We saw it at Man United with the Cantona years and various players. I think you always have to have a little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
With real talents where you give them a little bit of extra rope. But in general, you've got to keep everyone, tight and on the same page. And he's shown that he's not afraid to make tough decisions. I don't think that's a problem. I don't think man management is an issue. I think, from my experience, when managers decide they don't like you or don't want you anymore, they're cold. It happens. Like, I don't like it. I didn't like being on the receiving end of it. No one does. But it's kind of something that happens. You can probably compare to someone like Jurgen Klopp, and he's a friendly guy, looks like everyone loves him. But there'll be players at Liverpool that Jurgen Klopp has absolutely blanked and got rid of ruthlessly.
You don't get to that level with just being everyone's friend and everyone's whatever, especially when everything's on the line in football.
My thing about my one concern, or one area that Mikel Arteta needs to improve on is obvious, really, and that's his in-game management.
Yeah.
When things go wrong, or when things don't go to plan, this Arsenal team last season didn't turn it around. I mean, the stats are damning. From 1-0 down, we won once and we lost 11. No draws. I think we scored 3 goals from 1-0 down in those 12 matches, and we conceded 25. So when we concede first, it's been a big problem to turn it around, and I think it's an integral part of a manager's job to be able to tweak things to change the course of a match, whether it's via substitution, something tactically or whatnot, or giving the players obviously belief to change things around. So it's not all on the manager. The players have to take a big responsibility for that, but that's something obvious that I think that he will be looking to improve on next season, because you've got to be able to turn, difficult situations into positives. And we really struggled on that regard. Had we just turned, one of those difficult
where would we be?
scenarios
Literally in the Europe's elite.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you go behind, it's not a disaster. You've just got to be able to regroup, or if tactically the other team are on top of you, tactically they're sort of imposing their game on us and causing us problems. You've got to be able to react, fix it, and be able to change the match into a positive. So that's what we need to do better next season.
You mentioned it, and I don't think it's just on the manager, as you said as well. Why is that though? Because I mean, I could throw some things out there. It is age. It is, as you said, the game plan not going to plan. Yeah. But what is it? Is it resilience with the players? Is it forgiving yourselves for making mistakes? Because as much as Liverpool and City batter teams week in, week out, City won the league coming back from 2-0 down in the same game or the same time Liverpool playing against Wolves. So even when we lost to City, they actually had to come from behind. They had 2 games that week in Europe as well. So what is it down to? Is it down to the players? Because is it down to the manager? What is the lack of resilience potentially down to?
I've sort of covered off the manager's part in that. I think he's got to be able to see things and make those tweaks and changes at the right times to affect matches. And I'm sure he'll get much better at that, because he's still a rookie, really, in managerial terms.
Still a baby in managerial terms. Time's ahead of him.
I think it's obviously mentality is a sort of magic word in football. Liverpool, Klopp calls his team mentality monsters or whatever. It is that. It's having the ability to park disappointment. Every team has a bad half. Amen. Every team has a bad 20 minutes. You've got to be able to sort of let it go and trust yourself and your football to come through. Not let that bad half, bad 20 minutes, bad 10 minutes impact you for the rest of the game and affect your confidence. Definitely a little bit of immaturity, and that's obvious with the young players that we've got. Lack of maybe on-pitch leaders that are getting the team, galvanized and sort of putting these messages that I'm saying to you across. It's and maybe it requires the coaching staff as well to maybe back off a little bit. I don't know. I'm not saying this as a criticism, but sometimes if you've had a bad half, maybe don't focus on that too much. And I'm not saying that that's been happening, but sometimes the best thing to do is say, right, that's gone. This is what we're going to do moving forward. And you lot are brilliant at this and brilliant at that. And we can hurt this team in this way, that way during the second 45. I think, filling the players with confidence is a big thing. So, I think it comes with experience, definitely. And it's letting go of disappointments would be the area that I think we can really improve on, and that would go for the coaching staff and the players. It's a joint thing, really. You can't let a setback ruin your entire game. You just can't.
I would say that as well, and I don't know how you do it, but again, just on top of that, I just feel when we've been in those scenarios away from home, even when we've lost, I've always felt like we could get something away from it. Admittedly, away from home now, I haven't had that, so I don't know if you have to kind of accept the Premier League for all it is and the noise and the 12th man, but I would say to go with that as well, really.
Yeah, well, you got to be. Yeah, you play for Arsenal.
There's going to be a
way you expected to win, and you've got to have broad shoulders and handle that pressure and handle those atmospheres. I don't think that's an issue, the away atmospheres. I just think it's, you just need a little bit more mental strength moving forwards, and maybe get some more players into the building, into the team that have won things.
Kind of been there, done it. Yeah,
I think so. I think that does matter. A lot of clubs, they when they look identifying players in the transfer market, they look at what they've won and promotions and successes, and I think that is a really important thing to identify, to be honest.
You're right. I kind of didn't say it at the start, but we've kind of indirectly touched on it now. As you said, we would have taken 5th in August. There's a lot of progress to be made. But if we focus just on the missed opportunity allegedly of top 4, where would you pinpoint it? Would you say it's the tail end of the season and not reacting? Would you say ultimately it's the start of the season with what happened at the start? Would you say it's January with not bringing in a striker, not finding a resolution, actually letting the Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Callum Chambers, people of this ilk that are in large parts not going to be part of the season, but they could have done a job sort of thing? Where would you put it down to if you had to find a period? I know it's difficult.
I think January. I think we let too many players go. Maybe too many players go out on loan as well, because as you rightly point out, guys like Ainsley could have been pretty handy for us towards the second half of that season. But we left ourselves too light, didn't we? In a number of positions up front, especially. It was asking a lot, wasn't it? I think it was asking too much, basically, of our attacking midfielders, Saka, Smith Rowe, really. Martinelli, to carry us to Champions League. And they couldn't keep scoring the goals, unfortunately. And I don't think that's a crime by them. I think we just needed more forwards. We needed more midfielders available. So many injuries hurt us massively. The reason we're not in the top 4 is because injuries to key players, injuries to Partey and Tierney in particular, just came at absolutely the wrong time. White as well. Tomiyasu, clearly. You look at the win ratios and the goals conceded.
Amen.
With them and without them, it's pretty clear what a difference they make. So, we left ourselves too thin. I think that is pretty much it. I don't think. We did that much wrong, apart from the stuff that we've touched on, areas to improve, obviously. But the crux of it was having too small a squad for the second half of the season. And now that we're in Europe next season, we have to bulk up the numbers, don't we? And and get more competition for places into that squad.
You mentioned it, and kind of my last 2 questions for you. So first would obviously be, what is the plan for next season? Because again, for me, we finished 5th. We should be trying to get 5th and do better than that, really, top 4. Obviously, the cups, want to go as far as you can, keep seeing progress. So what would it be for next season?
Yeah, definitely a trophy. Win a cup, League Cup, FA Cup, Europa League, Conference League if we drop into it, but hopefully that doesn't happen. Win a cup. This is what Arsenal are all about. You've got to be in it to win trophies. We're not going to win the title, forget that.
Yeah.
But win a trophy. That's number 1. Well, I put it as a joint number 1 objective with obviously a top 4 finish. What's progress from 5th? It's 4th or 3rd, isn't it? I don't think 5th next season would represent progress. So, we need to get over 70 points. We need to score a lot more goals. We need to concede fewer goals, and we need to lose fewer matches. I mean, losing 13 Premier League matches is way too many.
It's crazy.
We need to be knocking that down to 7 or 8 max. Those are the challenges, I think, for the team. And I think we're capable. I do. I think we're capable of winning a cup. I think we're capable of finishing top 4. But we've got to do the right business this summer because the group of players we ended the season with were at their max. I don't think that they're
almost
capable.
Overperforming, really.
Yeah. So we need to supplement that group with 4, 5, or 6 new faces and go again. So I'm excited. I really am. I think that the team is heading in the right direction, 100%. But now is the time. I thought January was the time to really sort of push the boat out.
Yeah.
And go for it, because the door was ajar for Champions League. We had no
Europe. There.
Yeah, it was the time, I think, to go for it rather than hold back. We held back. It turned out to be probably a mistake. Now is the time to go for it because other teams will really strengthen. So we can't be left behind. So hopefully the club will invest and we'll pick the right players.
You mentioned 3 to 6 players there. I'm not going to obviously ask you for names necessarily, but what areas? I'll help you out a bit. Clearly midfield, central midfield. We've been linked with Telemans. Clearly a number 9 or almost 2 9s, as you said. Yeah. So that's about 3.
Yeah, they're the 3. I think we need a better cover at left back. I think that, and according to reports,
I
that's,
agree.
we're being linked with players. I think we need one more winger would be nice. So probably more of a natural left-sided winger would be a bonus. We don't need it because we've got
I like the
Martinelli,
thought of that.
Smith Rowe, etc. But someone to go around on the outside, on the left, would be nice. But I don't think that will be a priority. Obviously, probably a goalkeeper's coming in. We know that for Leno. And yeah, I think if providing Saliba stays, we're probably all right at centre half. So yeah, for me, 2 centre forwards, left back cover, and probably 2 midfielders, one box to box, and one that's sort of a jack of all trades. I would imagine, just someone to compete with the other guys. So yeah, I think that's where I'll be looking. What about yourself? You in alignment?
I'm in alignment with you, man. I think clearly every Arsenal fan up front midfield needs to be done. I'm like you, I'm a Sunday League fullback, so I want to see a left back of that I think is suitable. If you could do it, it's not really a push, but if you could upgrade on Cedric or someone to compete with Tomiyasu, then why not? And I agree
What
with your
you could
White
have there is White or Saliba.
Yeah, White could go over there
if
as well.
both are in the squad. Yeah.
So you could save money in that regards. You're right. So yeah, I'm literally the same areas with you. I think it's quite obvious where Arsenal need to improve. For me, the big one would be if I had to a striker, but where do you look at it? There's no point that you could have Ronaldo up front if you haven't really got midfielders you could create. You're not really there. So I don't know if I would prefer a midfielder or a striker if it came down to it, really.
Yeah, I don't think it's the creativity that's an issue. I think it's that solid control in midfield, strength alongside Partey, but strength, but also energy, mobility, that kind of, these are the qualities that we're looking for, because I think Arteta wants us to be a bit like Manchester City, doesn't he, in terms of ferocious when we're winning the ball back, and then really fluid when we've got the ball. I don't think we've quite got the players at the moment to be sensational off the ball, but that will come. I think we need real legs, enterprise, box to box midfielder. There. I mean, there's a big wish list. Every fans of every club have a huge wish list. But the bottom line is, we 100% need 1 or 2 more strikers, in my mind, too, and a box to box midfielder. Beyond that, I suppose everything's sort of tweaks here and there.
I mean, you kind of said it, man. You said it with the strikers. Arteta said it himself. We need to get 80, 90 to 100 goals, respectfully, to the players we have. We need to supplement that with additions. My real last question for you, in fact, it's almost 3 questions in 1 or 2, depending on how you look at it. What do you make of Mikel Arteta's new deal and the timing of it? And who would you say is your player of the season / most improved player of the season?
The timing, I got the deal. I understand why the men's team and the women's team both doing well. The board trusts them.
Made sense.
And it was ahead of a pivotal period, wasn't it, for both clubs? And I think they wanted to just give everyone a boost. It didn't work because we didn't qualify for top 4. The women didn't win the title, but that's not to say it was a bad thing. I think it's good to have stability. It's good to say, like, this is our manager. We trust him. You now go out and do the business. So I've got no issue with that. It's a big season for Mikel Arteta.
Massive season. Yeah,
it's a huge season because we've grown as a team, we've developed, and we have to do that again. And if we don't, then that won't reflect well. So yeah, it's a big year ahead for him.
True.
What was the other question?
Your most improved player of the season and your player of the season.
Yeah, let's think. Player of the season, Bukayo Saka.
I mean, it can't not be anyone.
It can't not
I was
be.
about to say I would exclude Saka because it's not really fair. But
most goals, most sort of chances created. There was a stat I did on the breakdown special. I don't know if you've seen it yet. It's up on Arsenal's website.
Go and check that out, people.
Yeah, so check that one out. Bukayo Saka had the second most touches inside the opposition box of any player in the Premier League last season.
See, I wouldn't have said that.
The only player who had more touch. Do you know the only player who had more?
I can't guess.
Who was the player of the year?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Mo Salah.
Yeah.
Mo Salah. Yeah. He frightens defenders. They backpedal. He gets into the box. He does his thing. But Bukayo Saka had the second most, which shows you the respect he's got from other defenders. Shows you the penetration he's got, the power, the pace. He's mustard. He really is. He's a great player. So that's great.
Contract sorted, man.
yeah, definitely. Most improved. Ooh, I think that's a really difficult one. I'd probably go with Emile Smith-Rowe, even though he tailed off towards the end, because I think at the start of the season we weren't sure is he going to be a first team regular? Is he going to be good enough to shine in the Premier League or not? I think we got our answers, didn't we? He is easily good enough to be a first teamer at Arsenal. He can make the difference. He plays for England now. I think he's if we can sort of just park that sort of, indifferent spell towards the end and look at him as a whole, we've got ourselves a really good player there. But what he will need to do is start the season well, won't he? Just to remind us what a good player he is.
World Cup year as well.
Remind the manager. Yeah. So I would say him, but a lot of players did get better. Eddie Nketiah, obviously towards the end,
I'd give it to him.
Showed
I
remarkable
didn't have this expectation
improvement.
of you.
I wouldn't have predicted. Not that I didn't rate Eddie, but I didn't. I thought he was better.
No one
than,
saw this.
Yeah, I think he was better than
Ian Wright said himself. Like, he needs to take his chances, and I mean, he's taking it. I think Eddie shows what you can do if you. It's difficult to give people opportunities, and obviously a byproduct was obviously what happened with Aubameyang, Lacazette's loss of form, failure to bring in a striker. But it shows what can happen if you just get a run of starts. It's difficult when you're getting 30 seconds or a minute, and he's earned that. Like, I feel he was very good against West Ham away, even though he was snatching at chances. So
I gave him man of the match that day.
So he did well. I kind of real last question, Martinelli. How has he done this season for you?
I think he's one that stagnated. If I'm being honest, he had some great periods. That period, I think the game against Leeds, he was sensational, wasn't he?
Finishing them games,
and he showed what he's about. I want more goals from Gabriel Martinelli. I think a little bit like Odegaard, they should be looking at 10 goals minimum a season, really. And both were short, even though Odegaard had a really good season. I think Odegaard needs over 10 goals, over 10 assists. That's
the minimum,
not too much to ask. For Martinelli, got to be getting over 10, 10 to 20 really for him. I still don't know what his best position is. I still...
Where are you more leaning towards?
I want to see him down the middle more.
Same. I think he's a striker, really.
When he first came to the club, his finishing was unreal down the middle. But I think that Mikel wants more from his centre forward. He wants him to link play.
He can't quite do it at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to coming in off the left. I just think he spends too much time. It's not his fault. Gabriel Martinelli spends too much time on the wing.
Yeah.
For me, Martinelli needs to be in the box,
making things happen.
That's where he does the damage. So, I like him. He's exciting. But we want more goals, and it's a big season for him. He's not a kid anymore, so to speak. So there'll be an expectation that he plays more and scores more. So I really hope it happens. But if he plays, it means that probably Smith-Rowe doesn't, and it swings and roundabouts, isn't it?
Like you said, swings and roundabouts. And I'm happy, man, because a bunch of these players can play in multiple roles. Obviously, while they're all still young and developing, I know Saka and Smith-Rowe, as we've been speaking about, have kind of done it for the large part of the season, especially Saka. But I think it's unfair. When other people drop off, other people should kind of take charge. And even the squad players, there's been times Cedric, Tavares, Rob Holding, all of these guys, even Leno in the one game he played recently, they've all stepped up. And that's what you need as a team. I mean, I know Origi's a cult hero at Liverpool, but it's not like he's starting every game. They look at him differently. He comes in and does a job. So I'm comfortable. I think Arsenal fans have asked for competition and quality in places, and we want to see it go a long way. But I think we're in a good trajectory. We've done all right. It was a disappointing season on some parts, optimism on others, and let's just try and mitigate against the bad things, enhance the good things, and hopefully this time next year we're sitting here talking about Champions League, mate.
Exactly. Well, that's what summer's about. Looking forward. Let's not look back too much. We've done that on today's show. Let's look forward and just improve the bits that we didn't do so well, and just get stronger, get bigger, get better, stronger, harder, faster, stronger, fitter. All of these things will help us get ourselves back into the top four and hopefully win a trophy as well. Because this is Arsenal. We're in it to win things, aren't we? And I think that's really, really important. It's not just about top four, in my opinion. I want to see us really travel a long way in the cup competitions next season.
You're not alone in that, because especially as we've got a young team, the best thing you can do is start to win these little trophies and create a winning mentality, like what we kind of completely different squad, but some of them are there when Arteta initially won the FA Cup and to a degree Community Shield.
very quickly on that,
Go
Mikel
on.
Arteta won the FA Cup, and it's given him, great credibility. But he did it in an empty stadium. He did it with no fans there.
Oh, that's a good point.
I think that it's about sharing special moments between the fans and
memories
and the manager as well. Exactly. And I think that Mikel would love, I think, to win something with the fans there, because that you really don't forget that. I think the cup final win, in a way, gets forgotten because none of us were there.
Yeah, you're right. It's
something we had to watch on TV. It was a little bit soulless. It was a great win, fantastic achievement, but it didn't. It's not something I think that will live long in the memory. So I think we're looking for moments now. We want big wins at Emirates Stadium, maybe a big win at Anfield, a big win at the Etihad, Old Trafford, something like that would be great next season, and also to win a trophy. Then I think everyone will really get behind him and the team moving forward. So I think in general they are, but there are still one or two that aren't sure. I think if we produce those moments, they'll join in.
That's it, man. You're right, man. I just, like you said, there's, at times on our worst of days, we're a mixed bag. On our best of days, we're really good. We're quite volatile. So just about, I guess, ultimately a theme that I keep saying in the back of my head from everything we've been speaking about has been consistency, man. Adrian, this has been a pleasure, as it was last year. I hope to do this again with you. Thank you very much for giving me your time. People, please make sure you check out the breakdown on Arsenal.com, which Adrian does a great job of doing, and follow him on all his socials. All the info will be in the description when this is out, which obviously you're listening to it, so it must be out at this moment. Again, Adrian, take care of yourself. Thank you very much for being here with me, man. Appreciate it.
No worries, mate. Yeah, no, been a pleasure, mate.
Peace out, man.
Because you always use that active red flag, defending.
I've been given like